You don't belong in a hotel like this." Jeff continued with that attitude, looking down on me. Then, Sarah approached him and pulled something out of her purse. "So you are Jeff," she stated. She handed him the item she had taken out. He was so taken aback that he was speechless. "My name is Michael. I work as an office worker. Sarah and I have been married for a year, and although we get along well, there's been one concern. It's about how busy my job is. Being naturally diligent and dedicated to my work, I've gained considerable trust from the company, albeit self-proclaimed. However, this meant I was constantly busy from morning till night, unable to spend time with her. Staying at the office past midnight wasn't unusual, which worried her a lot. When I called to say I'd be late that day, her voice was filled with anxiety. "Are you okay?" "I'm totally fine, don't worry. But you must be getting very little sleep lately." "Well, I'm managing somehow. The thought of you collapsing worries me so much. I think things will settle down a bit once I get through the current project." "Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm fine. Let's save up and go on that overseas trip soon." I put on a brave face, pushing myself a bit. The overseas trip was a promise I made to her when we got married. I promised to take her abroad since she had never been. We were close to our savings goal for the trip. But given how busy work has been, it might still be a while before we can go. Then one day, I caught a cold from being too engrossed in work. I knew exactly who I got it from. My boss, Jeff, was to blame. With his snarky attitude, he would grumble about even the smallest dissatisfaction. He approached me, coughing, to strike up a conversation. While I was busy with my own tasks, Jeff seemed to be making snide remarks as if trying to pass his cold on to me. "Jeff, you're clearly coughing a lot. At least wear a mask." "Shut up. I can't stand wearing something so suffocating." He continued to yell at me, spraying droplets as he spoke. Amidst such behavior, I ended up catching a cold. It's a wonder I didn't get sick sooner with that kind of exposure. I was feverish and in no shape to work. Feeling guilty but overwhelmed, I decided to take some time off. Seeing me like that, President Thompson suggested that I take a long vacation, considering the circumstances. He appreciated my hard work and wanted me to have some time off. I was surprised to receive such kind words. When I told Sarah about the long vacation, she was overjoyed. "Now you can finally take it easy. That's wonderful. It's unfortunate that I got sick, but the long vacation is a blessing. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise," Sarah said, all smiles. She was just happy that I finally had some time to rest. I felt grateful but also a bit guilty. It was clear evidence of her concern. Seeing my gloomy expression, she leaned in and spoke. "Hey, since we have the chance, why don't we go on a trip using this time off? The overseas trip we promised. That might be too much to prepare for on short notice. Let's go somewhere within the country." I thought it was a great idea. If we miss this chance, who knows when we'd be able to travel again. I nodded eagerly to her suggestion. We may not get another chance like this, so let's do it. Yay, it's decided. Let's start looking up right away. Just so you know, we'll go after I've recovered from this cold. I know, I'm not that heartless, she replied. The promised overseas trip would have to wait, but finally, we could spend some quality time together. I rested fully, and the cold was gone in no time. Few days after my recovery, we splurged on a stay at a luxury hotel. It was a place we decided on after much research and discussion, looking through the internet and magazines. After checking our luggage at the hotel, we went sightseeing. We enjoyed local delicacies, visited museums, and savored each experience thoroughly, Everything was enjoyable and fulfilling. I was glad we came. It felt like I had not laughed this much in a long time. A different sense of fulfillment filled me, unlike when I was working. Seeing her having fun just like me made me feel happy, but also a bit guilty. "I'm sorry, Sarah. What's wrong all of a sudden?" "I've been so caught up with work, I haven't been able to make time for us." I opened up about my true feelings to Sarah as we walked side by side. But Sarah didn't seem to mind at all. She looked at me with a serious face and laughed. "I love you for your hard work, that's why we're together," she said. "Thank you. Besides, we're having a good time together now, so no problem," she said, giving me a hearty pat on the back. Her positivity had saved me so many times before. With those thoughts, we enjoyed our day out and returned to the hotel. That's when an unexpected person appeared. Well, if it isn't Michael," he said. "Jeff. I never imagined I'd run into someone from work, especially Jeff, on vacation." Our good mood was instantly ruined. He approached us with a smirk on his face. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Sarah's expression darkened. "You surely don't plan to stay in this hotel, do you?" "That was the plan. A person like you doesn't belong in a luxury hotel like this. You should leave," he said. He began to say things that were nonsensical to anyone listening. It was none of his business. "I've already made reservations, so that's not possible." "Ah, I see. You're getting ahead of yourself, aren't you?" I'll be excusing myself to head back to my room. I quickly tried to leave, walking past Jeff. I don't want to tarnish even a moment of this enjoyable time. However, Jeff grabs my arm to stop me. He seems annoyed by my attitude, clearly not pleased. "Wait a minute. What is it? What kind of room are you staying in?" "Just a regular room, but..." I knew it. Hearing my response, he claps his hands joyfully. This happy expression is a sign that the sarcasm is about to start. I've seen it numerous times at work. "I'm staying in a suite. You can just see that I am staying there." It made no sense to me why he would go out of his way to say something like that. There's probably no valid reason for him. Mocking me is his sole purpose. "You're really reaching, aren't you? This hotel is not suitable for someone like you." With the same tone he uses to throw shade at work, he continues to belittle me. I was filled with a desire to retort, but I found I couldn't speak. Wondering what was wrong, I reached for my throat with my right hand. Sarah was beside me, looking at me with concern. It seems that the stress had finally caught up with me, rendering me voiceless. I was surprised by the timing of this, shocked at myself. "Can't you say anything back? Don't you find that pathetic?" His mocking face filled me with frustration and anger. Memories of being ridiculed at work flooded back all at once. Then, Sarah, who had been watching from the side, approached him. "So you're Jeff. I have something for you." "Ha, something for me." She took a piece of paper out of her bag and handed it to Jeff. What's this?" Seeing his surprise, I peeked at the paper and was equally astonished. It was a termination notice for Jeff. Why does she have something like this? Jeff and I both looked at her. You must be wondering how I know him and why I have this, right? Since I still couldn't speak, I nodded vigorously. Jeff, furious, confronted Sarah. "That's right. What's the meaning of this? What authority do you have?" While slapping the termination notice in right hand with his left hand, he shouted. She took a deep breath and began to explain. "The president of your company, Mr. Thompson, often dines at the restaurant where I work. Mr. Thompson from our company." Sarah had been working at a traditional restaurant in a shopping district before we got married. I knew that, but I had no idea that Mr. Thompson was a regular customer. As we were chatting about various things, we coincidentally discovered that he is the president of your company. And why do you have my termination notice? Even if they got along well, that seemed like a separate issue. As if she had been waiting for this moment, she continued. I was discussing with Mr. Thompson how worried I was about my husband's demanding job. So that's how it was. I was finally able to let out a bit of my voice. I never imagined that for my sake, she would consult Mr. Thompson. He was concerned about you too and knew about the unfair treatment you were getting from Jeff. You hear that from Mr. Thompson. Jeff, feeling cornered, couldn't say anything in return. She pointed at the termination notice in his hand and spoke. He arranged for some time off for us, wanting us to have some undisturbed couples time. Furthermore, he said to use this if any harm came our way, and gave me the termination notice. I couldn't believe that he went to such lengths for us. It just goes to show that there are indeed people who notice and care. Jeff went silent, his face turning pale. But I never thought we'd have to use it so soon. No, I can't believe it. I refuse to. He said this and began making a call on his mobile phone. It seemed he was calling Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, Michael's wife handed me a termination notice, but this must be some kind of mistake, right? But she hadn't lied about a thing. From his phone, I could hear Mr. Thompson's reprimand. Realizing that the termination was indeed factual, his face went ashen. How could this? Murmuring so, Jeff collapsed to his knees. Well then, we'll be excusing ourselves. We headed to our room. Jeff remained in a daze until a hotel staff approached him. Once in our room, I apologized to her. I had no idea you went to such lengths for me. I'm sorry. Stop it. You didn't know because I didn't tell you, so it's only natural. That was true, but that wasn't why I was apologizing. I'm sorry for causing you so much worry to the extent of taking such action. I see, that's what you mean. Understanding my point, she smiled. Let's save up and go on a trip abroad together. You promised me that when we got married. She mused nostalgically. To fulfill that promise, you've been working so hard, haven't you? Well, it's a promise after all. Being reminded made me feel somewhat shy. Though I was focused on my work, my biggest motivation was undoubtedly Sarah's presence. On my own, for my own sake, I couldn't have worked this hard. So I'll forgive you for not noticing my worries. Saying so, she flashed a brilliant smile and made a thumbs up. I truly felt fortunate to have married her. We enjoyed our meal provided by the hotel, savoring our private time as a couple. When we returned to work after the holiday, Jeff was nowhere to be seen. Just as the termination notice stated, he had indeed been fired. Given his nature of always making snide remarks to others besides me, everyone was thrilled at his departure. With someone who hardly worked and only made others uncomfortable gone, the workplace environment improved significantly. Overall motivation increased, leading to a significant boost in performance. I later heard that Jeff, who had stayed at the same hotel as us, was actually there with a woman he met at a club. Being married, the truth eventually reached his wife, leading to divorce proceedings. Combined with the shock of losing his job, Jeff seemingly lost the will to look for work. Now, it seems he's living a frugal life, scraping by on his savings, but who knows how long that will last. It goes without saying that a grim future awaits him. But enough about Jeff, let's get back to my story. Later on, I visited the restaurant where Sarah works. The truth is, this restaurant is where I first met her. I fell for her at first sight when she was working as a waitress, and exchanging contact information with her was the beginning. I remember being the most nervous I've ever been in my life when I asked her out on a date and confessed my feelings. And I clearly remember feeling the happiest I've ever been when she said yes. Since we started dating, I felt too shy to visit her restaurant often. But suddenly, I felt the urge to visit after a long time, and so I did. Back when I used to frequent the place, looking forward to the recommended dishes here was the highlight of my day. Sarah was surprised to see me after such a long time. Oh, what a rare sight. I missed the taste here. Could I get one of the recommended dishes, please? Sure thing. The place was bustling, especially since it was lunchtime. Then, unexpectedly, someone called out to me. A familiar voice came from behind. Hey, isn't that Michael? Har, Mr. Thompson. I knew he was a regular, but I never expected to bump into him here. Meeting him outside of work felt strangely surreal. Mr. Thompson, thank you so much. For what? I'm grateful for all your concern and support. As I expressed my thanks, he laughed heartily and clapped me on the shoulder. Don't worry about it. Really, I can't just. But more importantly, his expression turned serious. Working hard is important, but there are other things in life that you should pay attention to as well. Now, I understand the meaning of his words all too well. From a distance, Sarah was busily attending to customers. Being busy with work is precisely when you need to face what's truly important. This whole incident has made me acutely aware of that. There's no doubt that work is important. But that's not all there is to life. I haven't yet fulfilled our promise to go on an overseas trip, but I've decided to stop pushing myself too hard for it. Not just for my sake, but for Sarah's as well. Watching Sarah work, I made a firm resolution in my heart. Won't you just leave? Don't you think it's presumptuous for a low-educated fool to come here and ask for an interview? You're too idiot to be here. Go home. After my mom passed away, I started working right after graduation from high school. I was fired from my job due to harassment from my boss and looked down upon in job interviews. My life was a series of misfortunes. Nothing ever went right for me. But I kept trying and didn't give up. Education doesn't matter. What's important is having a compassionate heart. Now, I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart. My name is Ken. I live with my beloved younger sister Emily, who is 6 years younger than me, and our mom. We grew up in a single-parent household due to complex family circumstances. Our parents divorced before I could remember my father. I don't recall my father's face, and to spare us any discomfort, my mom never showed us a single photo of him. Being a single-parent family, my mom worked part-time during the day and came back in the evening. We lived on welfare, but my sister and I always admired our mother's hard work. She was a graduate of a prestigious university. Additionally, she was the best home tutor I could ever boast about. Ever since I was in elementary school, I used to ask her various questions about my studies, but she never gave me the answers easily. Mom, this math problem is just too difficult for me. Ken, this is how it is, she'd say. She never actually gave the answer. This was always the case. She would give me hints to lead me to the answer myself. I got it. The answer is C. Math is so interesting. Exactly right. Now that you've got the answer, let's have dinner. Emily must be hungry too. My mom was good at math and science. Maybe that influenced me, and I gradually started liking those subjects too. Mom, I want to go to a science university, a national one, of course, because it's cheaper. Do you think I can make it? I want to get a job in a company and help you out. Our lives will become much richer. Of course, you can do it, Ken. I'll support you so you can go to your desired school. Go for it with all your might. I must have been her hope. In my last winter of high school, right before Christmas, when I was studying hard for my dream university, my mom was cleaning the bathroom, and Emily, watching her, said, "I want to help," as she stood by. Suddenly, Emily came into my room. "Ken, come quick, Mom. I ran to the bathroom. There, my mom had collapsed. We called an ambulance immediately, but it was too late. She never came back home. The cause was a sudden subarachnoid hemorrhage. Without showing any signs, she always warmly watched over us, her children. With the help of relatives, we managed to hold the funeral. I was in a state of apathy. Emily, still in her last year of elementary school, took time to accept the reality. Our aunt said, "If there's anything, please let me know," but though her words were kind, she lived far away and we hadn't met much, so I only thanked her. After the funeral, Christmas came and went, and the new year began. I started to think about the savings Mom had left for us, our current life, and our future, trying to find answers on my own. On the first day back to school after the winter holidays, I told my homeroom teacher in the teacher's room, "I've decided to give up on going to ABC University." "Ken, it's unfortunate about your mom, but are you sure? It's ABC University. You have the academic ability to get in. I think you might regret this." "It's okay. I'll work and take care of my sister. This is the best solution I've come up with. I have no regrets." "I see. Understood. I'll report this to the career guidance teacher. We're here to support you. Feel free to consult us about anything, no matter how small." "Thank you." After leaving the teacher's room, I ran to the back of the gymnasium. I couldn't stop crying over the decision I had made by myself. I came home with my eyes swollen from crying. "Well, what's that smell? It smells like curry." "I'm home." "Oh, welcome back, Kim. I tried making curry for the first time, just like Mom used to. It's chicken curry because chicken is cheap." "Really? That's great, Emily. But isn't it a bit burnt?" "Don't worry about it. Let's eat." The rice was watery and the curry was slightly burnt. It was Emily's first attempt at cooking, and she's only in 6th grade. "Emily, I've decided to start working from spring." "Wait, what about ABC University? Aren't you going there?" "This is the decision I've come to after much thought. It's okay." "Then, I'll go to ABC University." "Haha, you got me there. I'll make sure to support you, Emily." Eating the slightly burnt chicken curry, Emily's declaration to pursue further education cleared away all the gloom I had been feeling. From then on, Emily started making lunch for me as well. Despite being only in 6th grade, she accepted reality very maturely. I'm proud to have such a capable sister. The sudden shift from wanting to go to college to deciding to work. Finding a job was tough, but with the help of my homeroom teacher and the career guidance teacher, I somehow managed to secure a position at a local company. My name is Ken. As a new employee at a local company, I was among the youngest. Especially in the sales department where I was assigned, the age gap with everyone else was significantly large. My closest colleague was Chris, 25 years old, who was my supervisor. Chris was quite a character. "Chris, I'm looking forward to working with you." 18, hey, high school graduate. "Yes, I just graduated from high school." I see, a high school grad. Everyone else here has a college degree." He was pretty assertive from day one. Despite the fact that I had gone through the proper job hunting process and joined after graduating from high school. From then on, I woke up at 5 a.m. every day, took the breakfast and lunch Emily had prepared the day before, and left the house. I arrived at the office earlier than anyone else, started by checking the sales reports, cleaned the toilets, and served drinks to the clients who visited, working harder than anyone else. Although it was essentially menial work, I made sure to do it diligently. And almost every day, Chris, my supervisor, would harass me in ways that are all too common in companies. Ken, did you prepare the presentation materials for Company B? Yes, here they are. What's this? Did I really ask you to prepare something like this? I tried to follow your instructions. It's not about trying. No one's going to look at this. It's back to square one. Duh. Now I have to spend extra effort on this. This is what I don't like high school grads. I'll report this to the department head, Edward. Chris was close to Edward. Upon close observation, Chris's skill at sucking up to Edward was evident. However, as soon as Edward was away, Chris would start bad-mouthing him to me. You know, Edward is so useless. I wish he'd get transferred out soon. I was always amazed at Chris's two-faced nature. One lunch break, on a particularly sunny day. On the company building's rooftop bench, I ate the lunch that Emily had made for me as usual. Today's lunch is chicken curry. I should have improved since last time. Don't lose to C and do your best at work, the message inside read. The initial C unmistakably referred to Chris. I had talked to Emily about having such a boss, and she always listened carefully. The chicken curry has indeed improved. It's much tastier than before. After enjoying the meal, I cleaned the lunchbox and returned to my desk at work. Then Chris approached me, asking, smells like curry. What did you have for lunch, Ken? Yes, my sister made me chicken curry for lunch. It was delicious. What are you thinking, man? We have a meeting with a client soon. You plan to meet them smelling like curry. You're not considerate at all. Like brother, like sister. This is why I can't stand high school grads. Forget it. I won't take you with me. I'll go meet the client alone. Just remember, if we don't get this deal, it's your fault. Chris, filled with anger, left to meet the client alone. I felt terribly down, but as time passed, Chris returned around 4 p.m. This is the worst. There's no way we're getting that deal. Damn it. I'll make sure to report this to Edward. It was impossible to secure the deal with the intense curry smell you and your sister create. Chris, I admit my fault, but my sister has nothing to do with this. Please take that back. Oh, what's this? You have a sister complex. I'll include that in my report to Edward. For the first time, I couldn't hold back and voiced my opinion to my boss after enduring his constant bullying and even insults towards Emily. I was well aware that he reported both true and false information to Edward. I realized I disliked Chris about 6 months after starting my job. The days of enduring continued. The spendable income was low, and the bonus was merely nominal. 1 year and 5 months had passed since I started working. As usual, I woke up at 5 a.m., washed my face, and was getting ready for work when Emily woke up. Good morning. Don't push yourself too hard. You look tired. You're going to get scolded by C again, hey. Do you think so? Lately, I've mastered how to deal with C. Like it's a final boss in a game. I've got my strategy down. If you say so. Was Emily's comment some kind of premonition? Of course, there was no strategy for handling Chris. Reluctantly, I headed to work, expecting to be scolded again. A 15-minute walk from our house spread a residential area, and there was a park where my mother, Emily, and I used to play. It was on my way to work. Sometimes, I'd sit on a park bench alone in the morning and think. Then, I saw an elderly woman suddenly fall forward on the bench. Ma'am, are you okay? I rushed to help her, making sure she could breathe easily by holding her in a comfortable position. Oh, my head hurts. Head, I gasped. It might be an acute subarachnoid hemorrhage, just like my mother. This was serious. I quickly took out my phone to call an ambulance and rushed to buy some water. "Ma'am, I've called an ambulance. Here, drink this." "Oh, thank you." She managed to sip a little water. She was conscious, but I couldn't let my guard down. Having lost my beloved mother, I had learned what to do in case someone suddenly collapsed. The key was to keep talking to them. Talk to them, make them comfortable, and gather the essentials. Though the elderly woman was a stranger, I didn't want her to end up like my mother. The ambulance arrived. The paramedics asked, "Ma'am, are you okay?" The woman had been out for a walk and didn't have any identification or a phone with her. Thoughts of work crossed my mind, but human life comes first. I left a message about the situation to the company and decided to go with the elderly woman. "May I join her in the ambulance?" "We'd appreciate that. Thank you." We arrived at the emergency hospital. The elderly woman was transported on a stretcher with a drip and an oxygen mask. While the doctor was attending to her, I felt that a message wasn't enough, so I called the company directly to inform them I'd be late. A few hours later, the doctor who had been treating the elderly woman came out. "She's suffering from dehydration. It's been quite hot these days. She'll need to be hospitalized for 3 or 4 days, but she's conscious and stable now. You can even talk to her. As a doctor, I'm grateful for your courageous act of calling an ambulance and accompanying her." "It's nothing. I'm just glad she's okay." "The lady wants to speak with you. Will you see her?" "I'll just say a quick hello and then leave." I visited the elderly woman in her room. "Thank you. Thanks to you, I feel like I've been given a bit more time to live. You're dressed for work, aren't you? What's your name?" "I'm Can." "I'll remember that. Thank you so much." I quickly took a taxi from the station in front of the park and rushed to the company. I arrived just before noon, at 11:40 a.m. "Good morning. I apologize for being significantly late." As expected, Chris was furious. "Ken, you're late because you were helping some random old lady. Do you know what day it is?" "Yes, we have a presentation at Company C this afternoon. I prepared the presentation materials at home last night. They're right here." "Which is more important to you, random old lady with not much time left or the presentation at Company C?" "No, I thought saving a life was the priority." "Playing the hero. Hey, you're fired." "What? You chose that old lady over a business deal, right? We don't need a salesman like that. President Parker and Edward are waiting for you in the meeting room. Go and tell them your heroic story." I went to the meeting room as soon as I arrived. Just as Chris said, they informed me I was fired. No matter how much I explained the situation, it was futile. Chris and Edward, always looking to find fault, were in cahoots. There was no doubt that Chris had already reported the situation to President Parker. That day, I returned home, frustrated and in tears after receiving the unjust dismissal. "I'm home." "Welcome back. I made your favorite chicken. What's wrong? Did Chris fire you?" "What?" "It's written all over your face. You've always been easy to read." There's nothing quite as frightening as a woman's intuition. I explained to Emily what happened and why I was fired. She understood the situation completely and then said, "When one door closes, another opens. We learned that in class today. You did a good thing by saving a life. If that's the answer you came up with, I support my kind brother." When one door closes, another opens, huh? Emily's growth as a matured lady and her intuition never ceased to amaze me. I'm always being encouraged by her. The chicken curry I ate the next morning, the spices spread through my mouth, making it the best taste I've ever experienced. I resigned at the end of the month. I'm going to start job hunting, but I'll still have some free time. Teach me how to make your special chicken curry. I went to the supermarket to buy ingredients. I wanted to sit on the bench in the park I used to pass through on my way to work and think about what to do next. When I entered the park, someone was already sitting on the bench. Not today, then. No problem, I'll come back later. Just as I was about to head to the supermarket and leave the spot. Can. Yes. The person on the bench was the elderly woman I had helped the other day. She came over and started talking to me. We sat on the bench and talked about recent events at leisure. She, now fully recovered, seemed even more interested in me, asking various questions that made me wonder, why would she ask that? In the course of our conversation, I accidentally let slip that I had been fired from my job. I know the president of D Company. What? The famous local D Company. If you're not busy, why don't you try applying there? I'll let the president know that for you. Apply to D Company, that famous trading company. There's no way I, a high school graduate, could do that. What is she talking about? Trying to leave the situation gracefully, I said, well, it's great to see you're doing well. I'll give it a try. Sort of a commemorative application, and then I took my leave. 3 weeks later, the interview day at D Company arrived. I had studied up on D Company and prepared as best I could. Well, so this is D Company. Their building was a 200-meter tall skyscraper. The first floor housed a convenience store, restaurants, a lobby for business discussions, and more, making me feel utterly out of place. Well, it's just a commemorative application. I guess I would have the door slammed in my face. Haha. I approached the receptionist on the first floor and said, "Excuse me, I'm Ken, here for a job interview today." 2 minutes later, a male interviewer came down. "You must be Ken. I'm Brian, and I'll be conducting your interview today. Please, this way." We took the elevator to the interview venue. It was a meeting room on the 10th floor. On the way there, Brian had been friendly, and we had light conversation. "Please have a seat here. Relax, okay?" "Thank you." It seems he had already noticed how tense I was. "Then, I'll take a look at your resume." "Yes." Soon after opening the envelope and seeing my resume, Brian's expression turned somewhat grim. "So, Ken, you entered the workforce right after graduating high school?" "Yes, due to certain circumstances, I started working immediately." "Well, it's tough for high school graduates at our company. This must be some mistake. Did you see the convenience store on the first floor? Maybe you got mixed up with an interview there." "No, I'm certain I'm in the right place. It's going to be difficult for us to hire you. Do you understand your place?" I do. There are many people who work hard even though they only have a high school diploma. Is it really necessary to have a college degree?" That's annoying." Brian put the resume back into the envelope and handed it back to me dismissively. "Wouldn't you rather leave? Don't you think it's presumptuous for someone with a low education to come here for an interview? You're too idiot to be here. Go home." At the moment I was yelled at, the door was opened. What? That was the first thing I blurted out. The elderly woman I had helped was there in a suit. Another man was standing there too. Hello, President Thompson. I heard you telling Ken to leave just now. I think the one who should be leaving is you." Me. "That's enough for today. You may leave. Make sure to calm down your thought." From the conversation, it was clear the man was the president of D Company. "President Thompson, Margaret, what's going on here?" I recommended Ken to President Thompson. "Was that inconvenient for you?" "No, not at all. Don't judge people by their academic background. What kind of person are you? Leave now." Brian turned pale and left the room. "I'm sorry for startling you like this. The president I mentioned is actually my husband." Thank you so much for helping my wife, Margaret, when she fell ill. President Thompson continued. I had to say that, or I thought you wouldn't apply for our company. When we talked on the park bench, I hoped you would join us. We wanted someone like you. The elderly woman I had helped was Margaret, the wife of D Company's president and also the head of HR. She had a keen eye for people. The meeting with them felt more like a casual chat than an interview. When one door closes, another opens. I was officially hired to work in the sales department at D Company. It felt like a dream. The company culture was entirely different. It was a comfortable working environment for me. I would occasionally run into Margaret at the entrance. Ken, how's work going? Getting the hang of it? Yes, Margaret, I'm enjoying it and being myself. Great. 5 years passed. My income got stable, allowing me to plan for the future. Emily was now in her 3rd year of high school. Her skill of making lunchbox improved with her age and experience. I appreciated it every day, looking forward to my meal. Today's sandwich has a star shape. What does that mean? Later, President Thompson called me in. Margaret was there too. Ken, there's an upcoming presentation event with various companies, big and small. Would you like to give it a try? Me. Your presentation skills have untapped potential. I recommended you to President Thompson again. I'm sure you'll achieve great results. Thank you, Margaret. I'll do my best. Haha, don't be so formal. The star mark in Emily's lunchbox makes sense now. A month later, fully prepared, I attended the event. Despite the large crowd, I remained composed. Isn't that? It was Chris, my former direct supervisor. He was also attending the event. We looked at each other. Chris glared at me as soon as he recognized me. I guess Chris is also doing his best, but I have my own path to follow. I can't lose. Undeterred, I presented in my own way. I secured a contract with one of the largest corporations attending. I had outperformed Chris, who had a college degree. Luck is part of skill. Joining D Company might have been luck, but I always acted thoughtfully and decisively beyond that. I never belittle people. Nor do I look down on them. President Thompson and Margaret had been observing my daily conduct. Those who watch do so attentively, noticing even the smallest details. Both President Thompson and Margaret were thrilled with the contract I secured with a major corporation. At a young age, I was promoted to sales manager at an unprecedented speed. Now, I'm in a position to lead others. When teaching others, I never give away the answers easily. I provide hints and encourage them to find the answers by themselves. This was a lesson from my late mother. The following year, my sister Emily was enrolled to the National ABC University, our mother's alma mater. She may be a bit of a seer with an exceptional intuition, but as her only brother, I want to watch over her slowly until she graduates from university.
Smells like poverty. Let me help you get rid of that smell. At a middle school reunion, I ran into my ex-girlfriend who used to look down on me for being poor. She poured wine on me. Maybe you smell a bit more luxurious now, thanks to the wine. Even though I'm no longer the same person as I was before, her attitude of constantly assuming I'm poor and laughing at me was exhausting. A woman who handed me a handkerchief glared at my ex and said, "He's not poor, you know. He makes $2 million a year. What are you doing?" After that, my ex-girlfriend faced a karmic end. I might consider dating you, James. There was no way I wouldn't be thrilled when Ashley, the most popular girl not just in our class but in the whole school, said that to me. My name is James. I'm just an ordinary boy attending a regular public middle school. If there's anything unusual about me, it's that my parents divorced when I was in elementary school. Now, I live with my mom in a single-parent household, and we don't have much money. My mom works from morning until night. I try to ease her burden by doing what I can myself. I can handle basic housework, and my mom always smiles and says it helps a lot when she sees me doing it. In my class, there's Ashley. She's known for being cute and beautiful, and even though she's still a middle schooler, she works as a magazine model. She's popular throughout the school, and many students admire her. Of course, I was one of them. That day, during our monthly seat change, I happened to end up sitting next to Ashley. I was so nervous, to say the least. "So, you're James, right? Nice to meet you." Yeah." I couldn't come up with a better response, so I felt annoyed at myself. But Ashley didn't seem to mind at all. Ashley, who works as a model, sometimes missed classes or arrived late. And when that happened, she often spoke to me because I sit next to her. I would generously share my notes and let her look at my textbooks, and because of that, we started talking more often. Talking to Ashley was really fun and exciting. It goes without saying that I was increasingly drawn to her. One day, it was one of those rare lunchbox days. Normally, my middle school provides lunch, but occasionally, we have to bring our own lunchbox. That day, I woke up early, made my own lunchbox, and was eating it at lunch when Ashley came into the classroom saying, "Hey, everyone." "Hey, Ashley. Did you have a shoot today?" "Yeah, I'm so tired," she said, greeting the girls in the class and sitting next to me. "Wait, where's my school lunch?" she said, looking around. "Ashley, it's lunchbox day, today." "Oh no, I totally forgot. I came here for the school lunch." "You came just for the school lunch?" I laughed as I continued eating my lunch. "Wait, James, your lunch looks delicious." "Really?" "It's just a normal lunch." "Did you make it yourself?" "Yeah." "No way. That's amazing." "Well, it's not that big deal." Ashley said, "Can I have a piece of your omelet?" and without waiting for my permission, she picked it up with her fingers and popped it into her mouth. "Wow, this is so good. James, you have a talent for cooking." "Well, thank you." I was really happy inside, but I got embarrassed and looked away. "I can't cook, so I think people who can are awesome," she said. And started eating the fried chicken I made. "This is amazing too," she said with a bright smile I couldn't look away from. "I might consider dating you, James." With those words, Ashley and I started dating. Before I knew it, Ashley and I were dating, and we finally planned our first date. We planned to go on a classic movie date. The reason was that she said there was a movie she wanted to see. Our meeting time was 11 o'clock, but I was so nervous that I arrived at the meeting place by 10:30. After all, it was my first date with Ashley. I must not mess up today. I kept waiting nervously, and she finally arrived at 11:30, saying, "Sorry, I'm late. It took me a while to do my makeup, sorry." Even though she was late, Ashley looked incredibly stylish and unbelievably cute. She was so stunning that I felt guilty being her date. Shall we head to the movie theater?" "Yeah, let's go." I was so nervous that I kept talking to Ashley, but I don't remember any of the conversation. As we were walking together, a group of juvenile delinquents who I thought didn't exist anymore approached us, saying, "Hey there, cutie." They looked like high school students, about 5 of them. "There's a toll to pass through here." "A toll?" "Yeah, it's $100 each to pass. Since there are 2 of you, that'll be $200. $200. Even under normal circumstances, $200 is a lot of money, but for a middle schooler from a single-parent household like me, it's an even bigger deal. It feels like $20,000 to me. I don't have that much. Then leave all the money you have. I'm scared. Ashley cried out. I was really scared too, but I was the only one who could protect her. However, surrounded by 5 guys much bigger than me, and not being particularly athletic, there was no way I could win. I tried to put up my hands in a defensive pose, but my legs froze, and I couldn't move. In the end, I got beaten up by the group. One of them took my wallet from my bag and looked inside. What? This guy only has $30 in his wallet. $30 for a date? Ashley, this guy is super poor. No way, did he plan to split the movie cost? Unbelievable. That $30 is my precious allowance from my mom. I tried to reach for it, but couldn't. They took the $30 and threw my wallet back at me. And finally, I heard Ashley say, "So lame," as she walked away with the group of delinquents. I was taken to the hospital by an ambulance that a passerby called, and it turned out I had a broken leg. I ended up with a cast and crutches. When I returned to school after the break, I was laughed at. "Hey James. I heard how you got that injury. That's so lame." That was Robert, the leader of our class. Next to Robert was Ashley. "James, you're seriously too lame. Plus, being poor is the worst. I wish you'd never show up in front of me again. Dating you even for a moment is a black mark on my life," Ashley said. "Try being surrounded by that many guys, it's terrifying." I tried to retort so, but Robert kicked my crutch and I fell. Looking up in surprise, I met Robert's glare. "Got a problem?" "Loser," he sneered. From that day on, Robert and Ashley started bullying me. They hid my textbooks and school shoes, wrote "poor" and "loser" on my desk with permanent markers, and even dunked my school bag in water. In group activities during gym class, I was left out most of the time. No one could stand up to Robert and Ashley, and I couldn't tell my busy mom about any of it. When I hinted to our homeroom teacher, Mr. Smith, about the bullying, he just said, "You're probably imagining it." It was a tough and lonely time, but my childhood friend, Joshua, supported me. Whenever we had group work, he'd say, "James, let's do it together." Our class president, Melissa, also stood by me. She'd always scold Robert and his gang, saying, "Aren't you ashamed of yourselves?" and treated me like a normal person. But despite their support, the relentless bullying made me stop going to school regularly. Before long, I couldn't go to school anymore and started spending my days at home. Joshua and Melissa took turns checking in on me every day, but I just couldn't bring myself to go back to school. After a while, my mom found out that I hadn't been going to school. She gently asked, "What happened?" and I finally told her everything. And then, I told her that I wanted to go to a high school out of state. Of course, the reason was that I wanted to get away from Robert and Ashley, who had bullied me so much. I didn't care if people said I was running away. I straightforwardly told my mom that I wanted to start over in a new place. I had already set my mind to go to a boarding school, and when I told her I wanted to go there, she said, "I'll go with you." So, I applied to a high school far away from here and got accepted. I didn't attend the graduation ceremony at the middle school, but Joshua and Melissa contacted me to say, "Let's keep in touch." And then my mom and I moved away. A few years later, I was living in the town we moved to, without returning to my hometown. One day, I got a message from Joshua saying, "There's going to be a middle school reunion. Are you coming, James?" Just reading that message brought back all those memories, and I had no intention of going, so I simply replied, "I'm not going." Then, Joshua called me for the first time in a while. "Hey, Joshua, long time no see." "Yeah, how have you been?" "I'm doing okay. My health is good. How about you, Joshua?" "I'm doing well." "So, about the reunion?" "Yeah, I'm not going." "I figured you'd say that, but listen. If you showed up now, everyone would be shocked. They only know you from middle school. And they still make fun of you. I want to prove them wrong. You won't be mocked or defeated now, I promise. Please." I don't care if they still make fun of me, but if you put it that way. It's true that the current me wouldn't lose to Robert and the others. After a lot of deliberation, I decided to attend the reunion. On the day of the reunion, my work took longer than expected. The venue wasn't too far from where I was, but the reunion had already started. What should I do? I don't have time to change. I had planned to go home and change into something decent after work before heading to the reunion. But now I was in my tracksuit with no change of clothes. Maybe I should just skip it after all. As I was thinking that, Joshua called. "James, are you almost here?" "No, I'm in a tracksuit. I can't go like this." "A tracksuit?" Joshua laughed. "Just come in your tracksuit. I'm looking forward to seeing you." He hung up, and I decided to go to the reunion in my tracksuit. Who cares? When I arrived, there were a lot of people at the reunion. It seemed almost everyone from our class was there. "James, Joshua spotted me and ran over. "Sorry for being late, Joshua. You really took your time." "It's been over an hour since it started," he said with his usual bright smile, which made me feel somewhat relieved. But everyone at the venue was giving me cold looks for showing up in a tracksuit. A tracksuit? Is that James? Why is he in a tracksuit? I knew I shouldn't have come. I regretted it. Then, someone called out, "Hey, are you really James?" I turned to see a flashy-looking guy with blonde hair and a woman clinging to his side. Looking closer, I realized it was Robert and Ashley. Both of them were somewhat familiar, even though I only knew them from middle school. James, showing up to the reunion in a tracksuit. "You're still so lame, it's hilarious." Ashley, who said this, was wearing a slit party dress. A bit over the top for a reunion, don't you think? "Hey, loser. You haven't changed at all since middle school. You might look like an adult now, but coming here in a tracksuit makes you still a kid." Robert, who was approaching, wore a blue suit with white stripes. With his blonde hair, he seemed pretty overdressed too. "Ashley, Robert, knock it off. I'm the one who told him to come quickly, even if he was in a tracksuit." Joshua defended me, but Robert and the others just snickered. Who actually shows up in a tracksuit? Unbelievable. Wait, James, is a tracksuit your everyday wear? Well, because of my job, I wear it a lot. Don't try to sound cool. You're still poor and can't afford new clothes, right? No, that's not at all. As I was thinking about how they were overly fixated on me, Ashley said, "You smell poor," and then she splashed wine all over me. The wine spread a stain all over my tracksuit. As I wiped my face, she mocked, "Maybe now you smell a bit more luxurious thanks to the wine." "James, are you okay?" A woman rushed over to me. She handed me a handkerchief. I took it gratefully and said, "I'm fine." But then she continued, "You need to take off that tracksuit," and the classmates around us started murmuring, "Hurry. You'll catch a cold." "Melissa, it's fine. Even if you think it's fine, your health is important. I'll get you a shirt, so just take the tracksuit off." At Melissa's insistence, I reluctantly did what I was told. I didn't want to take it off because I wasn't wearing anything underneath. Whoa, what's with that body? Everyone's shocked. James's got a six-pack. Wow, you're really muscular. Aren't you totally ripped? As the room buzzed, Melissa handed me a shirt and glared at Ashley. "Ashley, he earns $2 million a year, so he's not poor. This is an important time for him. What do you think you're doing?" $2 million. The room buzzed again. "Oh, come on, stop lying. This is that poor James. There's no way he makes that much." "Yeah, how could he make that much? A poor guy in a tracksuit can't be earning that." Then Thomas, who was also in our class, spoke up. "Hey, are you, really, that Iron Fist?" Yeah, that's me." "No way. I'm a fan. Can I get your autograph?" Iron Fist is my boxing alias. In middle school, I had a rough time and thought, I want to become stronger. So, I joined the boxing club at high school to build physical strength. There, a senior member of the same club complimented me, saying I had great skills. And then, I was introduced to a boxing gym, passed the pro test, and started my career as a professional boxer. It's no wonder my classmates didn't recognize me. Compared to myself in middle school, I've grown taller and much more muscular, so it's understandable they didn't realize who I was. Recently, I've been achieving decent results as a boxer, and in fact, I had a match earlier today. Today's match was to get a right to challenge the current world champion, and I managed to win, so I will be able to give it a try. Now he's earning a solid income from prize money, so he's not the same guy he was in middle school. Melissa says this with a smug look for some reason, but she's right. This is the same Melissa who helped me countless times back in middle school. She continued to worry about me even after we graduated from middle school, and frequently kept in touch. Melissa became hooked on boxing after watching one of my matches in the boxing club I joined. And then she told me, "I'll become your trainer and make you a world champion," when I said I would turn pro. True to her word, Melissa now actively works as my personal trainer. Who's the one stuck in the past? Who is lame here? Get over it. Melissa's loud shout echoed throughout the room. In the now silent venue, the first person to move was Ashley. Hey, James, you make $2 million a year, right? Maybe I'll date you now, she said. Huh? Ashley, what are you talking about? Well, you're rich now and way more handsome than in middle school. James, you still like me? Right? She said this while putting her arm around mine and snuggling up to me. What makes her think I still like her? While I was oddly impressed by her audacity, I firmly replied, no, I'm dating Melissa now. I don't like you, Ashley. At my words, someone snickered. Laughter rippled through the reunion venue. Ashley, her face red, stormed out, shouting, I'm leaving, with Robert hurriedly chasing after her. Later, it turned out someone had filmed the whole incident, including Ashley throwing wine on me and cozying up to me once she realized I wasn't poor anymore. The video spread online. Ashley, who was still working as a model, was branded as a villainous model with a terrible personality and couldn't continue her modeling career. Robert, who was running a couple's YouTube channel with Ashley, saw their channel criticized and damaged because of the video's fallout. Eventually, they had to close the channel, and both Robert and Ashley became infamous in a bad way. Their personal information was leaked, and their home addresses were quickly identified, forcing them to stay at home all the time. I never expected them to end up like that. It really is true that you reap what you sow, I thought. Then came the day of my match against the world champion after rigorous training. Thanks to the incident at the reunion, it had become well known among my classmates that I was Iron Fist. Many of my middle school classmates had come to the venue, filling the seats with excitement. My opponent, Jack, was a legendary world champion with an undefeated record in 30 matches. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I could win. I believed our skills were evenly matched. But since I started boxing, my goal has always been to become the world champion. I'm definitely going to win, I thought, slapping my cheeks to pump myself up. The gong sounded, signaling the start of the match. Neither Jack nor I gave an inch, and the fight dragged on to the final 12th round. By the 12th round, our stamina was nearly gone, and both of us were breathing heavily. I had taken a straight punch to the face in the 9th round, barely getting up before the 10 count, but it had left me with significant damage. This is my last chance. The final round began. We both remained unyielding, and neither landed a decisive blow. 1 minute left. I heard Melissa saying, "This is my only chance," I thought, focusing on Jack. By this 12th round, I had figured out Jack's patterns. He favored a right straight punch, but his guard dropped for a split second after throwing it. I had to aim for that opening. 50 seconds left. Melissa's voice came again. I saw Jack's right hand move slightly. He's going for the right straight, I was sure. His glove came at my face with a speed that seemed impossible for the 12th round. I narrowly dodged it and quickly regained my stance. Then, with all my strength, I threw a right straight punch at Jack's face. It hit his face perfectly, and Jack fell down. 5, 6. The champion remained down during the referee's count. Please, stay down. I was completely exhausted and couldn't go any further. 9, 10. The gong rang out loudly. Did I win? The world champion Jack has been defeated. The new world champion is Iron Fist. Cheers erupted, and I couldn't help but shout, I did it. My dream of becoming the world champion had finally come true. An interviewer approached me. Thank you all for coming from so far away today. The audience erupted in cheers, shouting, whoa. I could see some fans crying as they looked at me. Today, I'd like to share a bit about myself. It might be hard to believe now, but I used to be really weak. I was beaten up by bullies and they took all my money from me. I was truly weak, both physically and mentally. Because of that, I had a tough time in middle school and ended up leaving my hometown for high school to get away. But in high school, I really wanted to change myself. That's when I started boxing. If there's anyone out there who feels like I did, I want to tell you to have a dream. Whether it's becoming a CEO, a soccer player, a teacher, a police officer, or a firefighter, it doesn't matter. Put your hand on your heart and find out what your dream is. And if possible, tell someone about it. I know how it feels to be mocked for your dreams, so you don't have to tell those kinds of people. Just tell someone you trust. And if you don't have anyone, you can even tell me. I promise I won't laugh. Human potential is limitless, and I'll prove that with my life. It doesn't matter where you are now. Just keep reciting that dream every day. I'm not saying that wishing alone will make it come true. Wish for it and do the mundane things every day. That's the only way to achieve something extraordinary. I truly support anyone who chases their dreams. Anyone can change because I did. The frustrations I felt in middle school drove me to become stronger. If you never give up and keep working hard, you can change yourself, and your dreams can come true. If my efforts can prove that, I want to keep striving. With gratitude to everyone who helped me along the way, I vowed to keep working hard. It was only a little while after that, on the day I achieved victory in 2 weight classes, I proposed to Melissa. "Sarah, what's going on? There's no way we can pass the internal review with such poorly prepared materials. Surely you understand that, right?" From the other side of the partition, I heard my classmate Sarah being scolded by our supervisor, Chris. Sarah clenched her fists in frustration, saying, "I am truly sorry." Peeking through the gap in the partition, I felt something was off about the contents displayed on the laptop screen pointed at by our manager. David. Today, I would fulfill that promise from long ago and become Sarah's hero. I pushed myself and said, "Wait a minute, Chris." Stepping into the corner, I did everything I could to restore Sarah's honor. "My name is Jim. People say everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, but I have recently realized that I am someone who is particularly prone to the latter. This is because, at my current job at Green Valley Foods, I am constantly assigned to tasks that do not suit me, causing me intense stress every day. Specifically, my duties include preparing meeting materials from printed documents, cleaning the conference rooms, and serving coffee, in other words, all the menial tasks. I have always been clumsy, and even tasks that others find simple often took me a long time to finish or I failed to do them properly. The reason I ended up at Green Valley Foods was because my previous workplace went bankrupt. At that company, I was given tasks that suited me perfectly, making work much more comfortable. However, after the owner of my previous company passed away due to illness, a succession dispute broke out. As a result, the company's performance deteriorated, and all the employees lost their jobs. At 31 years old and unemployed, I struggled with my poor communication skills. I had been smoothly introduced to my previous job by my college professor. However, presenting my strengths and enthusiasm for work to strangers was extremely difficult for me. After more than 6 months of job hunting without receiving a single offer, Green Valley Foods finally took me in. The reason they hired me despite my poor communication skills was because Green Valley Foods placed a high value on academic background. Impressive credentials. You're hired on the spot. When I attended the interview, I was taken aback by the interviewer's immediate offer. I graduated from one of the top 3 universities in the country. And Green Valley Foods was eager to have someone with my background join their ranks. Thank you. I'll do my best, so please take care of me. Having been overwhelmed by my own helplessness for the past 6 months, I was deeply grateful to Green Valley Foods for accepting me with just a brief self-introduction. However, once I started working, I was assigned only with menial tasks. The reason was that during my training period, my innate clumsiness had become apparent. Even simple tasks like stapling documents and setting up conference rooms properly were beyond my capabilities, leading the company to quickly give up on me. With such poor performance on basic tasks, there's no way we can assign you anything more important. Chris, who had watched my failures with a tone of exasperation, had not given me anything but menial tasks since. But at that time, I was desperate to avoid being fired, so I complied with Chris's orders and performed the menial tasks. As a result, nearly a year after joining, I am now labeled as the highly educated but incompetent person who can't even handle menial tasks. In reality, it is rare for me to perform these tasks without any mistakes, so I cannot argue against this label. I once overheard other employees questioning Chris why I was still employed. The president of Green Valley Foods said that having someone from such a prestigious university on staff could attract more talented individuals. so just bear with him. Apparently, they hired me merely to boost the company's reputation as a workplace chosen by a prestigious university graduate. Although I am not openly criticized, I feel uncomfortable being treated like an outsider because of the company's emphasis on education. Even so, afraid of losing my job, I worked diligently, and one morning during the daily meeting, I had a fateful reunion. This is Sarah, who will be working with us starting today. She was scouted from Pioneer Foods, which we have dealings with. We expect her to be an immediate asset. The woman introduced by Chris was a stunning beauty with short hair, impeccably dressed in a business suit. Pioneer Foods, a subcontractor of Green Valley Foods, is a company that produces a wide range of processed foods, including frozen foods. Sarah, who had handled a wide range of tasks from sales to product development at Pioneer Foods, had been headhunted to our company. I couldn't hide my surprise when I saw her. We attended the same middle and high school, and were classmates for all 3 years of high school. After going our separate ways for university, I hadn't seen her since. I never imagined I would meet Sarah again in a place like this. After the meeting, I approached Sarah as she made her way to her desk. "Hi, long time no see. Do you remember me? I'm Jim. We went to the same middle and high school." I stammered. My colleagues were surprised that I, who had become increasingly withdrawn due to being treated like an outsider, had initiated a conversation with the newcomer. However, Sarah merely glanced at me with her sharp eyes and said, "Jim. Sorry, I don't quite remember," before waving lightly and heading to her desk. Feeling dejected, I started my work with a renewed sense of insignificance and a heavy heart. Being forgotten by Sarah left me so devastated that I couldn't focus on my work at all. Even the document preparation, which should have been finished long ago, wasn't completed. Left alone in the office, I sat at my desk in the corner, feeling utterly hopeless about my clumsiness. This page goes. Wait, where did the stapler go? Oh, the pages are out of order. Though I could easily organize information in my head, the moment I had to make paper documents, my desk became a mess. And my work came to a standstill. Adding to this was my innate clumsiness, making it impossible to keep track of what I was doing. Falling into a vicious cycle, I felt like giving up, but then I heard an unexpected voice. "Still struggling with this kind of work, I see." Sarah walked straight to my desk, tidied it up, and explained the order in which I should complete my tasks. Some people are particular about how you staple documents, so try to align the angles properly. But if that's too difficult, just staple them in this order. Following Sarah's instructions, my work began to flow smoothly, like a highway cleared of traffic. Thanks to her help, I finished my assigned work in just about 30 minutes. Thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have finished this quickly. When I thanked her, Sarah smiled and shook her head. It's nothing. If this is all it takes, I'll help you again. Well, I'm off now. As she turned to leave, I hurriedly called out. Sarah. This morning, you said you didn't remember me, right? She turned to face me, a hand on her mouth, and said, I didn't want to keep the senior employees waiting. I may not have your level of memory, but I'm confident in mine. I wouldn't forget a classmate that easily. Her graceful gesture encouraged me to muster the courage to make a suggestion. Would you like to have dinner tonight? I'd like to thank you by treating you. It was rare for me to invite someone out, given my poor communication skills. The fact that she was a familiar face from school and my gratitude for her help pushed me to ask. She thought for a moment and then asked, What's your monthly salary? Confused, I answered honestly. Just as I thought, I'm earning more than you. It wouldn't be right for you to treat someone who earns more. Let's do this another time, she said, waving lightly as she left the office. The next day, she fully immersed herself in her work, showcasing her abilities. Using her experience from Pioneer Foods, where she handled everything from sales to product development, she pitched a new product idea within the company. Within 6 months, her proposed replacement food series entered the trial phase. Even though she was a mid-career hire, the fact that she achieved this much within a year made Chris, who had scouted her, proud. She's impressive. Just as I expected. Everyone should learn from her, he praised her during the morning meeting. Seeing her excel made me genuinely happy. Though she graduated from a mid-tier public university, she was much more dedicated and efficient than the prestigious university graduates, including myself. At the same time, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loneliness. For the first month after she joined, she would occasionally stay late to help me with my work, but recently, she seemed beyond my reach. And we rarely talked. Looking for an opportunity, I asked, "Is there anything I can help with? Handling menial tasks is my job, so please let me know." She always would glance at me and say, "There's nothing I need help with right now. I'll let you know if I need anything. Thanks for asking." Before returning to her work, the girl who once felt so close during our school days had grown into a competent professional, far beyond my reach. Realizing this, I stopped approaching her altogether. About a week after her product entered the trial phase, I was working late, sorting documents in the partitioned space in the office, when I overheard my colleague Jessica's voice. She seemed to be complaining to a male coworker. "Don't you think Sarah is suspicious? Everything is going too well for her." Jessica, who was 2 years older than me, had worked here since graduating from college. While she was somewhat successful, she seemed jealous of Sarah's achievements, and her attitude towards Sarah was often harsh. Though she spoke coldly to female colleagues, she adopted a more endearing tone when speaking to male colleagues. With her childlike appearance, Jessica often managed to get male coworkers to help her. I heard a rumor that Sarah is flirting with Chris and David. It's just a rumor, but there is no smoke without fire, right? Hearing Jessica's words, I felt my blood boil. I quickly stood up and moved to the other side of the partition, shouting, "Sarah would never do something like that. You don't know anything about her, so stop making baseless comments." My voice echoed through the office. Fortunately, only Jessica, the male coworker listening to her, and I were in the office, but the two of them stared at me wide-eyed, shocked by my sudden appearance. It seemed they hadn't realized I was on the other side of the partition. "Who do you think you are, acting so high and mighty just because you got hired for your credentials?" Jessica, who had always looked down on me, turned bright red with anger at my unexpected outburst. "Sure, I might be someone who can't even handle menial tasks properly, but that doesn't matter right now." Determined to protect Sarah's honor, I was about to say more when the sound of heels clicking echoed through the office. And Sarah herself walked in. Jessica, the male coworker, and I stared at her in surprise as Sarah fixed her sharp gaze on me and said, "I know you're trying to defend me, but you need to be mindful of your volume. You could be disturbing others." While I stood there, dejected, Sarah turned her attention to Jessica and said, "For him to get this angry, you must have said something pretty awful. Mostly that I'm trading sexual favors or something like that? Don't worry, I don't have to do that, I can still get results." With that, she saw through Jessica's remarks and left the office. Her composed demeanor seemed to infuriate Jessica even more, and from that point on, Jessica began to openly harass her. "Sarah, make some coffee. This is a job for the newcomer. Don't rely on Jim, I'm asking you to do it." Usually, tasks like making coffee would be done by whoever was free, which was mostly my job, were now being unfairly assigned to Sarah under the guise of her being the newcomer. However, Sarah remained disturbed and said, "Understood. Does anyone have a preferred temperature?" Stopping her work, she complied with Jessica's unreasonable demands. With her work frequently interrupted, Sarah, like me, ended up staying late. She needed to analyze the data from the new product trial phase and devise improvements. When I asked if there was anything I could help with, she massaged her temples and looked up at the ceiling. "I'd like to say I'm fine, but I'm really tired of staring at the screen. Could you read the data out loud for me? Hearing it might spark some ideas." For the first time since she joined the company, I heard her voice sounding vulnerable. Following her request, I read out the data on the texture, flavor, and size of the new product. The data was extensive, and it took nearly an hour to read it all. "It's done, Sarah." "Wait, what?" When I looked up from the screen, she was leaning back in her chair, her eyes covered with her hand, gently snoring. Unsure of what to do, I hesitated until she suddenly jerked awake. "Sorry, I guess I couldn't help it. Listening to numbers makes me sleepy. Just like in school," she said with an embarrassed smile. Her charming gesture, a stark contrast to her usual cool demeanor, made my heart skip a beat. To hide my embarrassment, I turned to her and said, "Aren't you exhausted? You've been working nonstop, and Jessica's harassment isn't stopping. Why not talk to Chris about it? After a moment of contemplation, she shook her head slightly. That won't solve anything. I need to succeed despite the interference to earn her respect. Besides, she looked directly into my eyes. Swallowing hard, I watched as she slowly smiled and said, "Talking to you like this helps me feel better." Just like in high school. I remembered the summer of our senior year when she had to organize our class's event for the school festival as the class president. Our classmates, mostly preoccupied with college entrance exams, was uncooperative, leaving Sarah to do most of the work alone. I stayed late at school for some reason and ended up listening to her struggles. Just like now. The school festival, right? I remember, I replied. Nodding, she smiled warmly. Just as I thought. Well, I feel refreshed, so let's get back to work. You have tasks to finish too, right? Let's get them done quickly. Despite Jessica's ongoing harassment, she worked tirelessly for a week. During that time, I stayed late to help her, although I wasn't sure I was doing enough. But every time, she would leave with a bright smile, saying, "Thank you, you really helped me a lot." Then, one day, as the trial modifications were about to enter the next stage, Chris called Sarah over. She was summoned to the partitioned area where I had once prepared documents. This spot, occupying a corner of the office, was often used by Chris for detailed work. "Sarah, what is going on? If I submit such a poorly done report to David, I'll be the one getting chewed out." From the voice coming from the other side of the partition, it seemed like Chris was scolding Sarah. "With such sloppy data, it will be difficult to improve. At this rate, we'll be overtaken by other candidates. How do you plan to take responsibility?" His voice was filled with anger, while Sarah could only repeatedly apologize in a voice as quiet as a mosquito's, "I'm sorry." At that moment, a conversation from my school days with Sarah came to mind. If I can't help her now, when will I ever become a hero? Clenching my fists in determination, I stepped to the other side of the partition, calling out loudly, "Chris, she didn't make any mistakes." They looked at me with wide eyes. "Jim, do you know what you're doing? If you realize you're only here out of pity, you'd better leave right now." Chris tried to dismiss me with a tone of exasperation, but I couldn't back down here. Pointing at the laptop in front of Chris, I said, "The data can't be wrong. Because originally, it looked like this." And began to recite the words and figures I remembered from the document. As Chris stared in disbelief, I indicated the laptop with my eyes. "I'll say it again, compare it with the screen. With this data, you'll see it makes sense." After about 10 minutes of comparing the data with the laptop screen, Chris looked at me and said, "If your data is correct, this report should be sufficient." But what on earth happened? Sarah helped me out when I was at a loss for words. He's got a very high IQ. Especially in terms of memory and recalling it at will. She answered simply, looking somewhat proud. She continued, "He must have remembered the data while helping me with the report. Honestly, even I didn't remember the data this accurately. So I'm really grateful he was there." "Oh, is that so?" Chris, still in shock, listened as I shared my hypothesis based on my memory. That laptop isn't connected to the network, so anyone who tampered with it had to be here in the office. If we check the time cards from when Sarah and I left the office yesterday, we should be able to identify who altered the data. Our company has surveillance cameras, so they could serve as evidence. When I looked at Sarah, she nodded slightly. She must have a sense of who the culprit might be as well. At that moment, someone came rushing over from the other side of the partition. That person came at us with incredible speed, saying, "I'm sorry. I tampered with the data out of jealousy over Sarah's success. After I left yesterday, I regretted it, but I couldn't bring myself to confess." She bowed deeply to both Chris and Sarah, offering words of apology. My loud voice must have reached Jessica on the other side of the partition. Realizing the danger, Jessica tried to minimize the damage by apologizing first. But this is a very serious issue. Even Chris, who was relatively lenient with Jessica, seemed troubled by this situation. Pulling down a colleague in the same department could very well result in being fired. However, an unexpected person resolved the situation. "Chris, I don't want her to face harsh punishment. Since joining the company, I haven't been able to build close relationships with my colleagues because I've been so focused on work, so I also share some blame. She urged Jessica to lift her head and said, "Please, can we let this incident slide?" Sarah, the one who had been wronged, bowed her head to Chris. With her plea, Chris had no choice but to relent. "All right, everyone, let's do that." Accepting Sarah's proposal, he called out to the employees on the other side of the partition. That night, I found myself at a stylish bar with Sarah, who had invited me. The bar had a quiet atmosphere, and thanks to our seat at a corner table in the hall, we could enjoy our conversation undisturbed. In such a setting, Sarah was the first to speak. "Thank you, you were amazing. It was like the school festival all over again." Her words of praise were almost too much for me. "Yeah, I remember. You were just summarizing the class's ideas, but some guys picked a fight with you." Back then, the uncooperative boys didn't like her lead and complained, "We can't accept a plan that the chairperson decided on her own." Not wanting to see her vilified, I recited everyone's comments from the homeroom when the plan was decided, word for word. Thanks to you, I was cleared of deciding it on my own. But instead, you ended up being seen as creepy by the class. I really appreciated it at that time. Her repeated words of thanks made my heart swell. "It's nothing. I just wanted to help." As I stammered, she shook her head firmly. Looking me straight in the eyes, she said, "I'm so sly. I always think about how to handle things smoothly, keeping an eye on others' reactions. That's why I pretended not to know you on my first day at the company. I'm sorry, you must be disappointed." Her voice shook as she apologized. This is the second time I've seen her looking so frail. Back in our school days, she always seemed so dependable and dignified, but I never knew she had this side to her. Seeing this new side of her, I clenched my fists to muster my courage and said as firmly as I could, "I'm not disappointed. I want to keep my promise. I've always wanted to be Sarah's hero." She turned away, pressing her eyes. "You remember that promise? Your memory is amazing." That day when we stayed late preparing for the school festival, she had said half-jokingly, "I believe in heroes. I don't tell my friends this because they'd laugh at me, but what do you think, Jim?" I admired her even, back then, for her boldness and self-assuredness. Summoning the courage from within, I replied, "I think they exist. And if you ever stop believing in heroes, I'll become your hero." Thinking back, it was an embarrassingly bold statement. She had gone silent for a moment but then clapped her hands and laughed. "Jim as a hero, huh? That's nice. I'll be waiting for you to save me like a hero would." She stuck out her tongue playfully. Recalling that moment, she looked down, embarrassed. "Back then, I was so condescending. I'm sorry, I couldn't be honest because I was embarrassed. Because, I've always admired you, Jim." Not comprehending her words, I froze, speechless. Seeing me, she scratched her head sheepishly and said, "You were always so smart but never arrogant. You were always modest. And whenever someone struggled in class, you'd help them out. I admired that about you." She fidgeted with her hands and smiled warmly. "I got so excited when you said you'd become a hero for me. Thank you for keeping your promise." Hearing her true feelings made my eyes well up. I have to step up now if I want to be a hero. Encouraging myself, I turned to her and said, "I want to always be your hero. Will you go out with me?" Sarah said, "Of course. Let's go out together. I'm lucky to be with a hero." Responding with a smile so broad it created laugh lines. Later, her proposed new product successfully completed its trial phase and was launched to the market. Thanks to her advocacy about my help, I transitioned from menial tasks to a data management role that utilized my memory skills. A year later, I took her to the restaurant where I had confessed. "I have earned more. I can't compete with you yet, but let me treat you tonight," I said. I proposed paying for our date, which had always been split evenly. "I'm sorry, it was pretentious of me. That was just pride. I used to think that being treated by a man meant being looked down on." Recalling her past self, she looked quite endearing compared to her usual dignified demeanor. Determined to take our relationship to the next level, I presented her a ring box. "I want to be with you. I'll be the hero who protects you and our future family." She looked back and forth between me and the ring box, taking deep breaths. Pointing at the box, she said, "Put it on me." Being given a ring by my hero, I'm truly lucky, extending her slender finger. We reunited in an unexpected way, turned our school day dreams into reality and embarked on a new path together as a family.